Good segue into our next topic.
It is
Notre Dame coming off a playoff season. Could they possibly be the most difficult opponent on the schedule? Jason, we have basically sized up a schedule in which Florida State should be the favorite in 7 games, but there's 5 games, unless things change drastically, that they're going to be a pretty clear underdog. Let's see, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Florida. And so the most difficult opponent, Jason wanted to serve this one up, Logan, the most difficult opponent on Florida State's schedule.
I don't think it's Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is a very good opponent. I think it's a tough challenge to start off the season. I think they do lose a lot of components off last year's playoff team. They got blown out by Alabama. But if you were to say toughest opponent right now, as we're filming this on March 24th, everyone wants to say Clemson. I think Clemson lost a lot of people. I'm going to say the toughest opponent right now is North Carolina. Because I think what we saw with North Carolina, they lose a lot on the running game. They lose a lot of other weapons. They still have Sam Howell. Sam Howell scares me at quarterback. I saw what Sam Howell did here, when they played Miami in the last week of the season. I saw what they did in the Orange Bowl. I think it's also the unknown. Because I think North Carolina could go back to being a 7-5 team. North Carolina could also be 10-2, 11-1. I think it's going to be North Carolina. The North Carolina-Miami game will be what decides the Coastal Division. So I think North Carolina right now is the toughest game. I think the way things play out, it could also end up being Miami because we talked about it a little bit last week while Logan was busy getting drunk. Miami's schedule plays out to where you have Alabama to start the season. They go to North Carolina. And I say this with all due respect. Oh, come on, Ronan. You can always give abuse, buddy. Miami should conceivably, other than the Alabama game, could conceivably win every other game. And by the time they come down and play us on November 13th, could honestly be that they could be a top 10 team. They could also choke. So that's one of the things right now. I think Clemson is the surefire, easy choice, but I think North Carolina and Miami could, by the time we play them, be tougher opponents.
Getting some love there, Jason, on your take from earlier.
Appreciate it. I keep it real with my fans, even though they're all Miami stuff. I don't know how to feel about this. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. I do sincerely appreciate it. Who do you think, Logan? Who would you say right now is the toughest opponent?
I still think the toughest, just looking back, it's hard to just ignore Clemson. I think you're obviously losing Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think he's such a just huge, gigantic game changer. I really don't. They've got so many cats at wide receiver. ETN was ETN. I don't think he was that spectacular. So, a quarterback change to me where they're still bringing in Ojubugabajugi.
I'm sorry.
Ojubugajagugi. He's coming in, and it seems like he might even be just better athletic. Might be a better athletic player, and it might end up being a better player than Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence had a ton of hype, and that's expected. He has long hair, and he can throw the football to 5-star wide receivers. I still think Clemson's the biggest one here. ETN was nice. He stayed there because Dabo was going to give him $250,000 and tell him to keep his mouth shut, and he stayed there for 4 years. Well, do I have to state the obvious?
You've got a scoop.
We state the obvious. Well, just be like Kirby Smart, giving off couple of hundos for staying. But there was no reason for Travis Etienne to stay again, but he did. Didn't work out. You didn't get a national championship out of it, but at least you were able to beat the ACC all-time rushing record. Congrats on that. Dalvin Cook's 10 times better than you. But yeah, so I don't think right now, Clemson, they're losing Trevor Lawrence. You got ETN. I forget which wide receivers, but I still think the Clemson's by far going to be the toughest opponent. It all depends on the first game. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. That's a first game for anybody coming in is going to be tough, but I still think Clemson, Dabo knows Florida State right now. I think it's going to take a year or two for Norvell to be ready to go one-on-one with him. I'm sure he's going to try to do as much as he can this year. It's just not gonna happen. But I think Clemson by far to me is going to be the toughest. And then I don't know who number 2 would be. Possibly Florida, but Dan Mullen wants to go to the NFL, but he won't be honest.
I think my thing with Clemson, you talked about it a little bit there, with Trevor Lawrence being gone, but also Etienne being gone. I feel like that's going to be probably the same loss, because I think he saved them in a lot of games last year. But I feel like we're in the disadvantage, and Mark talked about this when the schedule first came out, about how difficult our schedule is versus Clemson. Clemson doesn't have to play North Carolina. They don't have to play Miami. As we look at their schedule real quick, their cross division is Georgia Tech and Pitt. That's their cross division. North Carolina and Miami play each other, obviously, because they're in the division, but they're light years ahead of the rest of the Coastal. So we're going to be playing these teams that have theoretically soft schedules before they face us. So it's not like they're going to be as challenged. That's the problem we're going to play. To me, North Carolina and Miami, I would say, are tougher because you know what you're going to have against Clemson. You know Clemson's going to try to put 80 on us after last year's game got canceled. They're going to try to run up the score on us. Miami and North Carolina, with the unknown of what they're going to be when we play North Carolina on October 9th, when we play Miami on November 13th, that's why they scare me. I feel like they're tougher right now because of what Miami could be by the time we play them.
Mm-hmm. The key departures right now from Clemson are obviously Trevor Lawrence, Jackson Carman, who's offensive tackle, Travis Etienne, who we just talked about, two wide receivers right here, Cornell Powell and Amari Rogers. Obviously, Amari Rogers, fantastic, talented wide receiver in the slot, who I think led the nation in slot receptions. But you're returning, Ugujulagabalaga at quarterback, and then you've got Ujugujugabalaba at quarterback, who I think is a very skilled quarterback. There's just a lot of talk about Trevor Lawrence. We get it, but when it comes down to some of the big games for him, weren't too phenomenal. I think DJ is going to fit the role nicely under Dabo, and then they're bringing back talent at wide receiver, at running back too. And so, yeah, I think Clemson's still going to be with it, and I think they have a good quarterback, and they're always going to have wide receivers, and that's always going to be a problem.
Logan's making a bold statement here, saying that Clemson is upgraded at quarterback with over Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah. Well, anybody will draft the Jaguars need anything. I mean, they could draft Jason tomorrow and might be better.
For the record, I'd hold out for more money. Second of all, before the Clemson fans start sending the hate mail and threatening my life again in Twitter, I'm not saying that Clemson will not win the ACC. I think Clemson is the clear favorite to win the ACC again this year. So everyone calm down. You're probably going to win a 7th straight ACC title.
I think Clemson's decidedly the best team on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Not by a ton, but I think decidedly. I don't have to think about that question. I think North Carolina is probably second, but I think North Carolina, Notre Dame, Miami, and who am I missing? Florida are pretty much in a group of their top 15 type teams in the country.
I just feel like Clemson. We know what Clemson's going to be. I feel like there's that unknown of North Carolina and Miami that it makes it tougher. It's almost like all those times that Georgia Tech. How many times did Georgia Tech beat us in football and beat us in basketball when they ran that damn option offense? That damn option offense that you never saw, you would only have 1 week to prepare for, and it would kill us. That's why they beat us 49-44 in 2009. We were clearly a better team. Yes, I agree with Cheryl. Just pronounce the name. It's just
Uyangalele.
That's actually pretty damn close.
Ugh.
I'll be giving Mark a little bit of credit on that one. That was actually pretty good. I like that. But that's why Georgia Tech was always that kind of weird team. That's why North Carolina and Miami to me are tougher, because you don't know what they're going to be at this point.